This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. On Stockbox today, I'm joined by the Investor Relations Manager for Sabien Technology Group, Scott Fulton. Now, Sabien is an AIM-listed company with the ticker SNT, and the company has been through a lot of changes recently. And to bring us up to speed, Scott, can I ask you first of all to set out the Sabien story, what the company is focused on, and the vision?
Absolutely, Mark, and thanks very much for the opportunity. Sabien Technology Group, or Sabien, is on a journey, and that journey is to play a significant role in what we believe to be the opportunity within the green economy, not just in the United Kingdom, but across the world. When we describe the green economy, we are thinking here of a number of different aspects of general economic life, but it would probably fall into, at this point in time, three main areas. The first of which is housing, the second is transportation, and the third, which I suspect will come up today, is going to be the creation of energy. In terms of the progress on that journey, Sabien has recently announced that it has entered into an agency agreement with City Oilfield of South Korea. The City Oilfield produces innovative technology and a process through which we can create fuel oil for a number of different uses through the processing of waste plastic and vinyl. That agreement is being rolled out right now, and the company is intent on exploiting the opportunity to the extent that it exists. We have also very recently taken an investment in a company called Aristech, which is involved in the hydrogen fuel cell area of transportation, principally for cars. Aristech has also very recently announced a cooperation agreement with an Australian company, Sprintex, designed to accelerate that development, and something that we are very keen on. As I said, we're also looking at housing, and we're also looking at transportation. We are looking at them very actively, but we cannot at this point go into any more detail as to what that actually means. But just to close on this introduction to the company, we are intent on playing a role, and an important role, across the world where we can, in the development of the green economy, which we believe is going to be the premier economic dynamic of the coming decades.
Okay, so just on the green economy then, and of course, Biden has set out that he wants 100% clean energy. There is definitely a push globally for green and clean energy, but perhaps not so many investment opportunities in the space just yet. How big do you think the market is for clean and green energy now and in the future?
I think one has to talk geographically in terms of market size, because in effect, a lot of the green energy creation and the green energy usage will necessarily be somewhat more local. And so to that extent, I mean, to give an example, of course, wind farms are very close to where the electricity is used. And indeed, the process in which we're becoming involved, clearly the creation of fuel oil from waste materials, is something, again, which has a relatively limited economic radius in terms of national. So I think in terms of scale, without putting a quantity on it, in the UK, one would look for alternative fuels to be providing energy sources consistent with the government's own plans. And I think from memory, that's 20 to 25% of energy usage within a reasonable time frame. I think that also, I mean, clearly one is looking at transportation. There is a lot of activity, work and progress being made in terms of electric vehicles. We know that electric vehicles in the UK will be effectively mandatory from 2030, which is obviously less than 9 years away. But there is also a number of different opportunities which are currently being presented in cycling and in other alternative sources of transportation, all of which, to an extent, will require some form of electrification or onboard battery. And again, while we're not in that market, we have indicated to the stock market that we are looking at those opportunities right now, and that market is potentially considerable. One knows, of course, that the UK automotive market is measured in the many billions on an annual basis, and indeed across the world. So, to the extent that we are addressing large markets, that is true. We are also addressing change in those large markets, where we are effectively looking to be at the forefront or very much the leading edge of where the economics of those markets change from traditional fuel use or fuel generation to new sources of fuel and new uses of fuel. So, as I say, Mark, it's very difficult to put absolute numbers on these things because it will be a question of conversion. We are in a market or in markets which are extremely large.
So let's just turn now to the recent news on City Oil, which you've said is the production of light and ultra-pure fuel products from low-temperature processing of end-of-life plastics. Can you elaborate a bit more perhaps on the technology and the market for the technology?
Certainly. Well, I'm not an expert, it has to be said. Clearly, what we've entered in an agreement with City Oil Fields, which we have referred to in our announcement as COF. COF's process has been developed over many years. It is effectively the catalytic degradation of waste materials, principally plastics and vinyls, to produce fuel oil. We are, as you say, looking to produce highly refined, ultra pure fuel from this process. It does so through the use of ceramic ball catalysts in terms of degrading or breaking down the waste material into its component parts, a central component of which, of course, is fuel. We do this at relatively low temperatures to produce a heavy oil, and then through a further refinement process, we produce the ultra pure fuel product that effectively will be our end product going forward. In terms of the actual use of the fuels themselves, principally we think it's heating, but we are still doing some work in terms of where that goes. It may well be that the fuel that we produce is part of a blend going forward into the market, and that, in that sense, considerably expands the end use of what we're going to be producing using this process.
Now, another bit of recent news from the company was an investor update on Aristech, and it was to do with partnering with Sprintex from Australia. Can you give us some more information on that?
Certainly. I mean, this is a story or an investment process for us which started back in February of this year when we made an investment into Aristech alongside other investors. That investment was to support Aristech's development of what is called e-boost technologies, specifically in hydrogen fuel cells, but also in hybrid electric, and to an extent, internal combustion engine or ICE powertrains. What has happened subsequently is that Aristech has entered into a cooperation agreement with Sprintex of Australia. Sprintex is building a very large manufacturing facility in China, which will produce electrical or electric compressors and compressor platforms, which will be a component part of the powertrains that Aristech was targeting. Aristech is part of that process. In fact, its proprietary IP is built into the platforms for use in hydrogen fuel cells. As another example of an investment that we're making and a company with whom we're working in the transformation of the economy on a more green basis.
So Sabien has been through some changes recently, and it's on a new journey, and it seems to be at the start, the building stage of this journey. Whereabouts are you on this clean energy journey? Can you tell me? And what's the roadmap looking like for the company?
Certainly. I think we're very much at the start. I think that we are very much at the start from a corporate perspective because we have started this journey only in the last 18 months to 2 years. I think that equally the markets that we're addressing are very much on the same journey that we're on. I think that one of the things that's become apparent through the last 18 months, 2 years, has been an increase in the pace and increase in the innovation within the green economy, the use of alternative fuels or alternative powertrains in transportation, for example, but the use or consideration of alternative sources of energy for housing and for commercial and retail properties, but equally the very creation of the fuels that we use across the economy, all of which have accelerated in terms of both their development and, as I say, innovation. So I think that we are in lockstep with the development of the economy, which is becoming more green, if I could use that word, going forward. Insofar as, or rather relating to your question as to how far along we are, we're very much at the start of this process. But I think that the work that we've done and the success that we've accomplished in the last 18 months has been an indication of how much further along we could go, perhaps, to the extent that because of our involvement in these areas, and because of our investment on the basis that we have done under Richard Parris, Executive Chairman, it means that we are gathering data and achieving learning about a range of different applications and a range of different economic developments, which I think put us in a very strong position to continue to invest ahead of the curve.
And what about potential further acquisitions then, Scott? Are they on the cards potentially?
I think that the strategy that we set out is very much one of partnership, but within partnership, one could never discount acquisition. I think that the way I would describe our strategy in terms of the growth that we're trying to achieve and the scale of the company is that at this stage, we are very much in a mindset of partnering with new and exciting technologies and business people. There will be an organic element to our growth. And that is certainly what will be happening, for example, in the context of COF and our relationship there. But we also will have an acquisition element to what we're discussing, and there will be other forms of partnership. So I think the best way to describe it is that we are taking an approach based on our strategy rather than an approach based on how we want to actually build the business, if that's the right distinction to make.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, just a final question then, Scott. In terms of fundamental metrics, how well are you funded at the moment, and what is the path to revenue?
Yes, thank you for that, Mark. I mean, we are well funded. Obviously, we're a listed company on the alternative investment market in London. We have very recently raised money from our shareholders, and we remain at this point and the last reported point, we remain in a net cash position. The route to revenue will be through the deployment of that cash and the deployment of other resources that we have available, both people, but also technology. The growth in revenue will come from the expansion of the business and our deployment and development of the businesses that we partner with. There is, I'm afraid, no way of being specific about when revenue growth will occur or to what extent it will be. But I think I would leave your listeners with the thought that we are clearly intent on growing a business commensurate with the opportunities which are presenting themselves within this green economy. Okay.
Well, Scott Fulton, the Investor Relations Manager for Sabien Technology Group, thank you very much for your time.
No, my pleasure, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.